Today I'll be showing you how I upcycled an old fan and turned it into a custom ventilation blower for my room. My room doubles as my workshop for a lot of projects. Whether I'm 3D printing, cutting plastic, or wood, it all creates dust and fumes. Vacuuming afterwards kicks up even more dust, which I definitely don't want to be breathing or having it settle down on stuff. I have 2 windows in my room, and they're pretty decently sized. But even fully open, the passive airflow isn't enough to refresh the space. So I need to build something that can fit into the windows and can blow good air in or bad air out. So let's get started. I started by building the frame for the blower, which I made out of 1x2s to the dimensions of the inside of the window. After finishing the basic frame, I moved on to disassembling the fan to see what parts of it I could use. I ended up with the perfect motor and fan blade combination. An added bonus was that the motor had 4 threaded mounting rods on it, which would make it really easy to mount to the frame. However, I also realized that the frame I made was way too big for the motor, so I measured the diameter of the fan and the diameter of the shroud and cut the frame down to size. I wanted to make it as small as possible to leave as much room in the window when it's installed, and also make it easier to store. Then I shifted my attention over to the shroud, which I modified by removing the clips and traced out on a piece of 1/4 inch MDF. I cut out a half circle the size of the shroud in the MDF, and then cut the piece to fit perfectly into the frame. I replicated the same piece and glued them both into the frame. This is where the shroud would mount onto. I had to find a way to mount the motor onto the frame. The first thing I did was measure the distance between the mounting rods on the motor. Then I transferred that spacing onto 2 pieces of 1x2. I drilled 4 holes for the mounting rods and hogged them out because the rods weren't long enough to go all the way through the wood. A quick test confirms that the motor fits perfectly. I had to cut out about half of the 1x2 so that I could actually bolt the motor in, but the mount is still more than strong enough. With the motor still attached, I used 2 small sections of 1x2 to connect the mounts together. The whole motor mount assembly attaches to the frame like this. I attach the 2 together with 3 screws on both the top and bottom of the frame. I dry fitted both the fan and the shroud, but I didn't like that spiral baffle, so I wanted to remove it. After properly modifying the shroud, I attached it to the frame with 4 nuts and bolts. I did a quick dry fit and it looked pretty good, so I took the whole thing apart and put it back together, this time gluing the pieces of the motor mount that weren't glued together before. The next day I sanded the whole frame with 220 grit sandpaper, after which I applied several coats of white latex paint so that it would match my windows. While the paint was drying, I disassembled the speed controller and got rid of the original plastic case. I drilled a hole for the speed controller in the MDF part of the frame. I then attached it with some CA glue. Finally, I attached the dial face to the speed controller and it looked pretty clean, so I could mount the motor to the frame one last time. The only things left to do were reconnect the motor to the speed controller, clean up some of the wiring, and then it was finished. The blower mounts in the wall by wedging in between the window and the window frame, which makes it really easy to put in and take out. It can either be mounted on the top of the window or on the bottom. Even from across the room, the blower is strong enough to be moving the POTHOS around in the wind. I would say this project was a huge success because it definitely works at moving a large amount of air into the room, and with the other window open, it moves a lot of air out at the same time. If you enjoyed the video, please like and share, and subscribe if you want to see some more cool stuff in the future. Thanks for watching. Also, there's a link in the description if you want to see how I made that POTHOS shelf.